We're on lesson number 6. So I only have, after today, 2 more lessons. Lesson 7 and lesson 8. By the way, I'm not sure if it was announced in church today, there are new class structures that are starting at the beginning of May. Those have been posted online, and I don't know if did they mention something in church? I missed the first part of church. They did. Okay, so you know full well. All right.
One other thing, I think my understanding is Pastor Keith is gonna bring this class next time.
He's going to be located right here. Yes?
He's going to be doing the Beatitudes, Eddie. He's going to be doing
The
Beatitudes.
Beatitudes.
So we are on lesson number 6, and we are going to continue with patience today. And I'm not going to finish today, so I'll give you a heads up. Today we're going to cover 2 main topics. The first, and everybody have a sheet in front of you. If you're not, let us know. But 2 main topics we want to cover today, and that is we want to finish our discussion of trying to understand what really is patience. That's a key focus. And second, I want to discuss what really are we doing when we're patient with one another, and try to come up with some steps, some practical, how can we increase our patience? That's what Eddie's all about, increasing his patience. I know that's why I'm here. All right, so what we want to do is first start with a quote that I remembered last time, or that I gave to you guys. It was mentioned by a statesman back in 1600s. He lived in England. And he said, "He who is a master of patience is a master of everything else." Now that's good advice, not only in the Christian realm, but in the wherever you work, wherever you play, whether you're training children, whether you're training how to make something, any skills we're talking about, any sports activities. You know, if you're a coach, it's patience, right? Kids feel like once they can dribble a basketball, they're ready to take on, Michael Jordan. But we have to be patient. He who is a master of patience is a master of everything else. In the book of Philippians, chapter 1, we want to refer to that again. Paul says, "In this I pray. In this I pray that your love may abound more and more in knowledge." This verse gives us a couple assurances. First, that we can know what this love is. How can we be patient if we don't know what patience really is? And this verse gives us an assurance. We can know what it means to be patient. We can know what it means to be kind. We can have that assurance. This is what humility is. This is what bearing with one another is. This is what it's like. That's one of my goals for each of us here today. The second one, we can have an assurance. Maybe this is even more important. We can have an assurance that we are increasing in our love. That we can know that we are increasing in our patience. We can know that we are increasing in our kindness and so forth. Today I want to have each one of you leave with 2 things. I want you to leave with an understanding. This is what I believe patience is, what the Bible says it is. And I want you to be able to leave with knowledge. Here's how I can increase it. Here's some ways that I can do today, tomorrow, whenever, that I can increase my patience so that my love can abound more and more. So that's how you judge me today. If you walk out of here today clueless about what patience is, put it on me, because I'm gonna try to be focused and give you what I believe for today. All right, last week we recall that we were working through what the Bible says about patience. I mentioned that there were mainly 3 different aspects of of the way the Bible speaks about patience. The first one is biblical patience is about waiting on God. Biblical patience is about waiting graciously on God. We learn that patience has a time component. It's waiting. Psalm 37:7 says, "Rest in the Lord. Wait patiently for him." So it's more than just a time element, it's how we wait. We can wait quietly. We can wait restfully. We can wait expectantly. I summarize those words, quietly, restfully, expectantly, in that one word, graciously. So patience is waiting graciously on the Lord. It's waiting for him to work. He that is patient understands that God is in control and he knows what and when is best. I believe once our eyes are open to this patience, we see it everywhere in the scriptures. We begin to see that Noah was patient when he built the ark. Noah waited to get into the ark. Noah waited to get out of the ark. What about Abram? He waited. Now, unfortunately, he didn't wait patiently. At least at first. He had to learn this lesson. And unfortunately, we're still reaping the results of his impatience. His name was Ishmael, and his descendants are still a problem today. But he had to wait. What about Isaac? He waited for Rebekah. Jacob, he waited for Rachel. Tamar waited. Joseph waited. What about Moses, Caleb, Gideon, David? I think if we consider any great saint of the past, I think we'll come to the conclusion that they learned how to wait. Patience is waiting graciously upon the Lord. Next, patience is endurance through suffering. So we learn that patience has a time element, but patience also has a suffering element to it. It has a suffering component to it. And that's why when it comes to patience, it's not something we're normally drawn to because of that element of suffering. But biblical patience is endurance through suffering. John Wesley, founder of Methodism, said this. He defines patience as the disposition to suffer whatever pleases God in the manner and for the time that pleases him. So Wesley considered patience as the disposition, someone that has the disposition to suffer whatever pleases God in whatever manner and time that it pleases him, the length of it as well. James chapter 5, verse 10 and 11. Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered, or have patience. You have heard of the patience of Job. The same book, James chapter 1, chapter 2, verse 2 through 4. My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations or various trials, knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. And let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, lacking nothing. Patience is endurance through suffering. Remember those hymns? Must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize and sailed through bloody seas? Are there no foes for me to face? Must I not stem the flood? Is this vile world a friend to grace, to help me on to God? Sure, I must fight if I would reign. Did you hear that? Sure, I must fight if I would reign. Increase my courage, Lord. I'll bear the toil, endure the pain, supported by your word. Must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? No, there's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me. Julius Caesar, remember him from history? The Roman general, emperor. He said this: "It is easier to find men that will volunteer to die rather than to find those who are willing to endure pain with patience." Imagine that. It's easier to find men that say, yeah, I'm willing to die, than to find men that will endure pain and suffering with patience. It's food for thought. Now, the intensity of our suffering, we can't be real scientific about this, but let's put it on a spectrum, a scale. There's suffering on the low end. Let's call this the zero end, the zero, the 0.5,
The other
0.1.
one, you said it's zero.
Something's drawing me mysteriously over here. Actually, I did not plan that. On the low end of the scale of suffering, let's call this mild inconveniences. You know, when your wife is maybe 2 minutes late, or your husband.
Say it louder for the bad.
When your wife is 2 minutes late, that's mild inconveniences. That's mild suffering, if it can be called suffering. How about when you're going to Walmart and you need something and you get that and you head to the line, the checkout line, and there's one person in front of you. That's it. That's one person in front of you. That's not suffering. Okay. That's not really inconvenience. All right, so that's the mild end of the suffering spectrum, right? Still on the mild though, right? Hopefully the mild end of the spectrum doesn't get our anger to quickly show itself. How about on the other end of the spectrum? This is like the Job-like suffering. When you lose it all in 3 days, and you have a wife that says, curse God and die. This is the Job-like. This is the end of this. This is the heavy stuff. This is the stuff that really hurts. That's painful. Maybe it's betrayal. Maybe it's, again, the sky's the limit. Maybe it's loss. And the scriptures tell us, in those times, let patience have her perfect work. What's interesting is the Bible uses that pronoun her. Let patience have her perfect work. In other words, endure that suffering. And as you endure it, patience is perfecting something within you. How do you know that you've reached, that patience has endured? How do you know that when in suffering, that patience has done its perfect work?
And you can rejoice because of the suffering.
When you count it all joy. The loss might still be lost. The pain might still be there. But you've let patience have her perfect work. You can look back and say, I see the good in that. I'm actually to the point where that was good for me. If we're not careful, we get carried away and say, maybe I can take some more. Maybe I can bring this on. Pain is pleasure. You ever heard that? People really get excited because they see how how they see the results of patience. That's what it is. And it's so dramatic and it's so transformative that we begin to think, if this is what God's plan is, to perfect me through these sufferings, I wonder if I should allow more of those sufferings. I wonder if that's what's going to perfect me. Patience.
I call that living through the black hole also. You ever been there? The black hole where you're not really getting responses about your prayers, but you're still having to stay focused through the black hole.
That's a good illustration. Thank you. Patience. Remember, suffering is not the key. People suffer and become bitter. So it's not the suffering, it's letting patience have her perfect work in the suffering. That is what makes suffering in you better. Some may be truly suffering today. And it may be towards the upper end of the spectrum. The only comforting words that we can really say at times like this is, let patience have her perfect work. Remember last time I told you about that I admire Fred Rogers. Remember him? Fred Rogers from your kids' days, or maybe even your days, where he was a prominent, by the way, Fred Rogers would never make it today. Okay, just never gonna happen. There'll never be another Fred Rogers to work with kids for a half an hour as he talks very distinctly and slowly. One of the things I admired about Fred Rogers is how he would work with people that were suffering. Many times, parents would bring their suffering kids to him because he was their idol. They would watch him all the time, and he would allow that. Kids would travel with their parents from everywhere to come see him. And when they found out that he was going to visit, they would make sure that they would come and see Fred Rogers. There were kids that were paraplegics. There were kids that were paralyzed. They had great surgeries that they were going to soon face, that heart. They would all come and see him. He would spend time with them. He would give them their full attention. He would invariably turn to the parents, and he would talk with them. And he would say the standard things like we all say. He would say, my wife and I are praying for you. And then after he would say that, this seems to be his habit, he would almost come closer to them and whisper something to them. And what he would whisper sometimes would be something like this. He says, and would you do a favor for me? He says, would you pray for me? You are suffering so much right now. You must be close to God. Pray for me. When you're so close to him, remember me too. Isn't that something to think about? So there's patience with God. It's waiting graciously, quietly, restfully, expectantly. There's patience with suffering circumstances. Both have a time element. Both have a suffering element. Now there's patience with people. People. No, I'm not. I'm not. Now there's patience with people. And you guessed it, there's a time component and a suffering component. Patience is waiting graciously on people. Patience is waiting graciously on people. People with weaknesses. People with failings. People who are dropping the ball again. People who aren't communicating as they should. People who are saying hurtful things. Again, maybe you begin to echo the words of Peter. Lord, how many times should I forgive this guy? Patience is not needed with perfection, right? Patience is only patience with imperfection. If Jesus were here, I don't think we'd have to worry about if he said an unkind word. He said something, if he dropped the ball, if he didn't communicate like he should, that he made a look at me that I wonder, was he being critical of me, or whatever the case. We didn't really need to be patient with Jesus. He was perfect. Patience is only patience because of imperfection. And can I say that this is even challenging, or be patient with that word, yes. The more imperfect, the more patience that is needed, right? And Jesus says, "And this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have patience one toward another," right? Isn't that what love is? Love is patience. Therefore, Jesus says if you have love one toward another, then you should make the conclusion, if you have patience one towards another. And that's what sometimes it's difficult for us, because this patience is really needed among the disciples. That's who he's talking to, right? He wasn't talking to the Roman general. He wasn't pointing over there and saying, "Hey, that Nero guy over there, that's how you're going to be patient with Nero."
Infighting and who's going to be number one.
Yeah. Patience is not needed with perfection. If people act like they should, there's no need of patience. So patience is really giving people time to grow. Patience is creating an environment, really. It's nurturing an environment. It's giving someone else an environment so that they can grow like they should. They don't have to climb over things and get over obstacles. It's like we cleared it all out for them. Everything's fertile, everything. It's almost like it's easy to grow when we're patient. Parents know this, right? With their children. Every wise spouse knows this. Every wise friend knows this. Every wise pastor knows this. Every wise manager knows this. For he that is patient is of great understanding. So let's try to pull all these aspects of patience together in a comprehensive definition. So to be patient is to cherish delay, to endure suffering, to bear with the weaknesses of others, all without complaining or becoming quick to anger. Okay, let's putting them all together. This is what biblical patience is. Cherishing delay, enduring suffering, bearing with the weaknesses of others, all without complaining or becoming quick to anger. And you might be thinking, man, that is hard. Good. That's good. We should be thinking, that's hard.
It is.
That's right. We should be thinking, that's hard. We should be thinking, this is crazy. This is no way. That's exactly right. For with man, this is impossible. But with God,
Don't we have to do this like forever, or is there?
are you asking Is there an end to patience? Is there a legitimate end to patience?
There can be, but it's not gonna be followed good.
Can I say I've thought through that, and that's actually a very good question, because I think there is an end to patience.
I mean, we could just done it and done it and done it and see what it doesn't about it. Like if you just turn around and go, cleaning my patience. I don't know.
I think there's an end to it, but God makes the end. God determines the end, and it's up to Him to solve the problem. We'll get to that in another lesson, but that's a really good question. It's better to say there's 490 times we still need to go. That's better to take that approach. So I believe that's what patience is. Now let's talk about how to increase it. Remember that patience, as we looked at last week, Paul defines this love as a unit. He doesn't define this as 16 different characteristics that we can sort of pick and choose and work on and say, you know, I really excel at 5, but 12, I just fail in. To Paul, it's a whole. It's a unit. So, to answer this question, what really are we doing when we're patient with one another? That's really what I'm after here. What really are we doing? We're actually bringing all the gifts, all the 16 characteristics of love with us. As we're patient with one another, we bring the rest of the 15 with us to them and give them to them.
So we're loving.
Yes, that's exactly right. So in one sense, I can say, whenever we're patient with someone, what are we really doing? We're also being humble. We're also being forgiving. We're also bearing with them. We're also not being envious. For most people, if you can just be patient and kind to them, it's like blows their mind. This is so rare. Imagine if through God you could bring the rest of the 15 characteristics of love and focus them on an individual that really needs it. They might walk away and say, "Are you my angel?" Imagine that. And Jesus says, "And this shall all men know that you're my disciple if you have this should be the standard way of doing this." But it's so rare. So in one sense, how do we answer this question? It's just what we're doing when we're patient, it's all the other things that we bring together. And whenever we're kind, what are we doing when we're kind? We're bringing all the other, we're being patient. You can see where I'm going with this. All right. But I want to explain it in a little different way. I want to answer the question using everyday language. Right? Using the terms that we might use and to say, what are we doing when we're patient? And then as a result, how can we increase our patience if we work on that area? That's how I want to look at this question, all right? So, in one sense, the question is already answered. What do we do when we're patient? Well, we're also humble. We're also, and so forth. That's love. But let's look at it from a different perspective, and maybe it will help us to be more specific. What really is this patience? What's happening when we're patient with someone? First, it's giving your full attention. Now, I'm 100. I think I'm 100% certain about this. That you can't be patient with somebody and not pay attention to them. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty certain that that's not possible. Think about the last time somebody was patient with you. Were they paying attention to you? Obviously, right? But this term paying attention is not a biblical term, okay? It's actually a term that our culture has recently focused on, unfortunately. They recognize that there's a lot of distractions out there. There's a lot of things that get us off of our focus of one another or on our task at hand. And so there's a lot of talk or a lot of terms about pay attention. Teachers might say that to kids. Spouses might say that to one another. Pay attention. I'm about ready to say something. Or children might say that to one another. Friends, pay attention. Paying attention. One of the best gifts that you can give anybody is giving your full attention to them. We all like gifts, right? Ladies typically love to receive roses or flowers. One of the best gifts that you can give someone, especially nowadays, is your full attention. Husbands, let's maybe try some baby steps here. On your anniversary, during dinner time, just give your wife your full attention. Just during dinner. See what that'll do.
I do that every day.
And maybe after you've done that, on her birthday, give her a little more. Or how about every day, just a narrow window of time. Maybe like a couple minutes when you're in conversation. Just start easy, 2 minutes. Just give her 2 minutes of your full attention.
At our age, right now in this class though, who's been married just a year? 2 years? Okay, 5, 10, 20. We're past that point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, honestly, you don't gotta go easy on these men or us women, because time is what I could care less about flowers. And he knows it. When I die, there better be balloons. I don't want flowers. But his time that he gives to me, I cherish more and more, I guess, as I get older. I cherish it. This man goes to work at 4 in the morning and gets home at 4 in the afternoon, and we automatically like either sit down together or stand in the kitchen, whatever. How was your day? What, just that few minutes of time is precious to me. And I think just looking around at our ages and stuff, you know, we've learned, you know, every day is a gift, such as she requested about Renee, who's a friend of many of ours. I know Randy didn't think he had that much time. So I don't take any time for granted anymore, I guess is what I wanted to say.
Another way of phrasing this paying full attention, how many have heard of quality time?
Yes.
Okay, same thing, just a different phraseology. Paying full attention. I like to use that term because quality time can be it's all depending on if I'm there present with you and I'm really giving you my attention. That's what it's all about. That's what makes it quality, if I'm giving you my attention. So husbands, start easy. Wives, you're very good at multitasking. Also give your husbands your full attention.
Does that mean they can't text while they're doing
No.
Now, blessed is the man that gives his full attention to his wife, and blessed is that woman who daily receives that daily precious gifts. Where is your attention? Remember, I'm talking about patience here. I'm not off my subject, okay? I'm talking about patience. Where is your attention? This is a groundbreaking question. Change where your attention is, and you will change where another person's mind is. Has anyone ever told you that if you give people your attention, their mind will begin to soar? And if you don't give them your attention, their mind will begin to stop. Sometimes my job, I interact with people. They bring problems, issues with people, issues with processes. Customers maybe bring a complaint. And for some time, I've been working on this area of my attention. And a practice that I do is whether I'm at my desk or I'm out on the shop floor and somebody approaches me, it's almost like a ritual for me now. I'll put my phone down or whatever, I'll stop typing or whatever I'm doing. If I'm standing talking to somebody, and I'll say, okay, you have my full attention. And that's something, it's just like a ritual for me to say, all right, get into that mode. Lay aside everything else. You have my full attention. Patience starts with you giving your full attention to someone during the conversation. This full attention also requires that you're interested in them, right? Has someone been patient with you? Maybe they're giving you attention, but I know they're not interested in me right now. Their mind is completely on somewhere else. Sometimes. Yeah. My wife has told me in times past, John, what are you thinking? Your eyes are on me, but
Oh, but careful your thoughts.
All of us would love to do that, Bruce.
okay. Your full attention combined with your interest are so powerful that in some cases you won't need anything more. Patience has had her perfect work. Pay full attention. Next one.
What about undivided? Isn't that the same as? That
It's the
means
same.
you're not dividing your attention from them something else. I'd always been told, give me your undivided attention, which I took you in for.
Same thing. Very good. Let's move on to another step. Now keep in mind, these steps that I'm talking about, they're not necessarily in order. As you go trying to be patient with someone, you might not even see that this is happening. What I'm saying is most of the times when we're patient, all these things are together. Okay? They're one whole. Next, slowing down your talking and your anger and listening more. That seems like a lot there. Why did I choose those three? Why didn't I just pick a point and say, all right, do this, do that? Because they're found in James chapter 1, verse 19. James links these together, which is very interesting. I wouldn't have made that connection, but James does. So let's listen to him to see why he's doing this, and maybe we'll learn something. James in chapter 1, verse 19 says this, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath, or anger. For the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Now we know that the opposite is true in the world, right? Every man is swift to speak, slow to listen, quick to wrath, right? But as Christians, we've learned that most of the times, literally every time, whatever's out in the world, we do the opposite. That's a good place to start. And such is the case here. Slow to speak, slow, quick to listen, and slow to wrath. Now, why are we focusing on this? Well, remember macrothumos. Remember that? Macrothumos. Love is macrothumos. The first thing. Takes a long time to be angry or incensed. That's what patience is. Patience takes a long time, and James says the same thing. Be slow to anger. Remember, he's just saying be patient. But I want to focus, we'll touch on all three of these things. But I don't want to start with anger at the moment. I want to start with, actually, slow to speak. Slow to speak. So another way of what we're doing when we're patient with one another, we're actually slowing our speaking down to that individual. One of the ways that we can increase is by slowing down our speaking. When we pay full attention to somebody, slowness to speak naturally follows. When you give your full attention and try to listen to what they're saying and attending to what they might not be saying, but you know is the real issue, oftentimes you begin to see after they've said what they've said, wow, that's a lot. How do I process that? Giving your full attention naturally should make you slow to speak. I've been trying to practice this when I teach. Some of you might have noticed when you ask a question, there might be a delay. And it's because I'm trying to pay attention. I'm trying to listen for what is the nature of the question. What are you doing? And I want to pause and then give an answer that I think is appropriate. Now, in the past, I think I would have valued quick thinking. I would have valued the back and forth of we tend to prize that in the culture. We tend to think that somebody is more valued if they can quickly give me all these answers and have knowledge right on the fingertips. And if you're in a meeting and if the boss says, hey, we got a problem here, and if somebody says, okay, I know the problem here, we got 3 things that I think I've figured it out, we can do this and this, and he turns to you and you're like, what do you think about that? You're trying to pause, and he says, no, you missed it. We don't necessarily prize being slow to speak, do we? Well, that's obvious. The world is quick to speak. They don't think before they say something. Slow to speak.
Wise old owl sat in the oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we be like that wise old owl in the oak?
Let me suggest something radical. You guys open for something? Something radical. All right, we need to maybe change up our thinking here. I'm going to suggest something radical. All right, it's a promise. It's a promise to make, and it's a promise to keep. And that promise is, I won't interrupt you. Being slow to speak, I believe, includes something within us to say, I'm not going to interrupt you. Hopefully I'm not in the weeds here, but I'm trying to bring out to increase our patience. Because I feel that oftentimes when we interrupt somebody, we're impatient with them. We're impatient with their thinking. We're impatient with what they're saying. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you here. Be slow to speak.
Sometimes if you don't do that, though, you forget what you're
That's one of the exceptions.
noise unless you interrupt.
I hope they can't see the little cartoon quilp across my head right there either at that time, you know.
I'm speaking in general here. There are exceptions. The other day, I did interrupt somebody. I said, they used an acronym that I wasn't familiar with, and I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? And they said, okay, got it, go ahead. And I moved on. There's emergencies, and there's forgetfulness, what did you say? And but keep in mind, I don't want to come up with now 1 million exceptions. Interruptions, we interrupt, others interrupt. I don't know about you, but when someone interrupts you, it elicits a response, doesn't it? Makes you feel, huh? Man. Because I had something to say, and I thought that was helpful, and now my thinking is clear off something else, like I was interrupted.
So I don't think we don't,
Yeah, since he interrupted, I'm interrupted. Do you have something really important to say?
yeah. Y'all can go on.
I like it. Good illustration. All right, let's move on. I picked up a book, this was a couple years ago, and I read it, and I want to read something to you. It's called The Promise That Changes Everything. I won't interrupt you. Let me read some stuff to you. I won't interrupt you. I promise. I won't interrupt your words or your thoughts. Imagine it. Imagine the relief, the possibilities, the dignity. This is for you. Time to think, to feel, to figure out what you really want to say, consider it, to change it, to finish your sentence, to choose your own words. And because you know I will not interrupt you, you will want, when you finish, to know what I think too. Even if we disagree deeply, you open your heart, and because you promise not to interrupt me, I open mine. And yet, it is nowhere. We look around, we can't find it. We see only interruption. Our colleagues interrupt, our professionals interrupt, our beloveds interrupt, our friends interrupt, we interrupt. Where in your circles can you point to a single person who you are certain will not interrupt or stop you when you speak? Who in your circles has ever made this promise to you and kept it? And have you ever made that promise to anyone? Most likely not. This is a shocking truth. The one thing we can absolutely depend on in this life is that we will be interrupted when we start to think. In fact, according to the Gottman Institute in Seattle, 3 years ago, the average listening time of even professional listeners was 20 seconds. Now, it's 11. 11 seconds. And those of us who are paid to listen, coaches, therapists, doctors, managers, leaders, teachers, pastors, advisors, have paid for endless instruction in how to listen. But the instruction is effectively in how to insert, how to tailgate, how to justify the populating of silence with our own view. It is listening that expects us to interrupt, or so it seems. Certainly, observably, it does not require us to promise not, and so we interrupt, all of us, paid or not, partners and parents, leaders and learners, wage earners and shareholders. We move through our days and years interrupting others and failing to fool it when interrupted us. And that matters. Interruption diminishes us. It diminishes our thinking. In the face of it, our own thinking barely has a chance to form. That means our decisions are weaker, our relationships are thinner. Interruption of thinking is so destructive, in fact, that we have produced as a species, what we have produced is probably inferior to the achievements the uninterrupted human mind might have produced over those eons instead.
So that sounds like a family bit.
Ha! I found helpfulness in being less interrupted. Consider that. Maybe there's exceptions, but consider that. You wonder what would happen to the divorce rate if husbands and wives on their wedding day, made a vow to one another, I won't interrupt you. What would that do? Something to think about. We're talking about patience, right? Slow to speak. Next, be swift to listen. Let every man be swift to hear, quick to it. Christians are master listeners, right? They listen to what is being said. They listen to what is not being said. They listen to what's behind the words. They listen to understand. They listen for the fears. They listen for the hurts. They are a patient listener. That's good for us as husbands. When your wife is talking to you, yes, we're listening to the words, but I've been trying to listen. What's behind those words? Listen for the fears. Listen for the encouragements. Listen for what are the really desires behind that? That's, I guess, part of paying full attention, right? Listening, swift to listen. We need to be slow to anger. Remember, love is macrothumos. It takes a long time to become angry or incensed. Showing patience implies that we are restraining anger. We're slow to show it. That doesn't mean we won't potentially show it. It's slowness to anger. He's warning us, or he's encouraging us to do. Not eliminate it. Actually, in one sense, there's one scripture that commands us to do that. Be angry, but don't sin. It's when you're showing it. So there would be a whole lesson as we approach that one characteristic of love is not easily provoked, is not easily angered. That's a whole discussion of what is the role of anger in a Christian's life. I'm not going to treat that here, but that's to come. The next thing I want to look at is understanding the weaknesses of humanity. Proverbs 14:29, he that is patient is of great understanding. I think when we're patient with someone else, we enter into an understanding of that person, of that situation, and try to place ourselves in that position and say, I understand where they might be coming from. I understand what stress might be doing to that individual. I understand that they are suffering. I understand that they probably haven't slept in a couple days. I understand. When we come to be patient with others, we also bring this understanding. And the last thing I want to point out here is sometimes the most difficult part of patience. This is where we can bring our full attention. We can listen. We can be slow to speak. We can focus on that individual. We can try to empathize and understand what they're going through. And the last one, the key component to patience, I think, overlooking the offense. Overlooking the offense. Remember, patience is all about what's been done to you, right? Yep. It's all about what's been done to you. Patience to someone else and you're like a bystander, we can handle that. But when hurtful words are said to us or when inconveniences are done to us, that last step where we overlook their transgression is sometimes the hardest thing, hardest element of patience. But that's what makes patience patience. We looked at Proverbs last time. Remember Proverbs? No, sorry, I missed this one. Proverbs says that a man's wisdom brings patience, and it is his honor to overlook a transgression. That doesn't mean that we deny that the offense Didn't happen. It doesn't say that we're blind to that offense. It happened. It hurts. It still does. But patience overlooks that offense done to you and looks at that person and sees what that person really needs. And if we let patience have her perfect work in us, we step back and we say, it's an honor. It's an honor. It's my honor. You know Chick-fil-A. Oh, it's my patience. It's my patience to serve you. Or, excuse me, it's my pleasure to serve you. That is my pleasure. Interesting slip there. It's my pleasure to serve you. Whether it is or not, we'll leave it at that. But the terms are, it's my pleasure to serve you. And this patience, if it's truly divine, if we're allowed to let this patience work in us, we'll do what Proverbs says right there. It's my honor. It's my honor to overlook that transgression. That's something to dig for. I'm wanting to dig for that. I'm wanting to seek for that. I'm wanting to experience that. That I can, whatever offenses are done to me, I can say, this here's my glory. This is an honor for me. I'm not putting blinders on and say, that didn't happen to me. No, it's overlooking that. I believe those are four of what's really happening. We're paying attention, we're slowing down our speaking, we're slowing down our anger, we're coming with understanding, we're overlooking a transgression. Those are the four things. So if you want to know what patience, what are we really doing? We're doing these things. Now, I could have listed them in 10 ways to do it, but I just chose to keep it at 4 and keep it more focused. There are other things that I think we can do to increase our patience. And I'm just going to look at them briefly here, and then we're going to eat. Yes?
I was just saying,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to interrupt. I've got patience. I am looking forward to the one that, you've done a great job with patience, and I love this, but I'm looking forward to the time where you say, it's okay to get angry. You say that's coming.
Yes.
Good.
Actually, it's not just okay, we're commanded to it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You have done a terrific job with this patience. Thank you.
Okay, let's, I think I'm just gonna stop at the moment. It's 11:28, and we can pick this up next time. I'll clean this up, and I want to answer one last question for patience, and that is this. What are some hindrances that we may have that prevent us, that serve as obstacles for us to show this patience, this divine patience? What are some of those hindrances that are common among us, that you may have or may have had, that seem to come in the way of really God working through us to be patient and show us love?
Yes. Self-pride.
Pride.
Okay.
Well, mine doesn't seem good like theirs. I was thinking more like, if you just, sometimes it's hard to be patient with somebody that you just through the same thing over and over and over. And you're quiet and you just listen and you go and over. You see what I'm saying?
Like they don't
And it's-
comprehend, like they don't comprehend it.
Well, no, it's actually, I think they don't, they're just bouncing it off of you. You're just like a body, so you just be really quiet and anything to say. Not maybe it is.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
You know,
work on mine a little bit, but for me, and I know I need to reach out to my sister, but every time we go to Michigan, I have a bigger sister, she never comes to see us, I mean, but yet, she complains, and she literally posts on Facebook how bad her family is because we don't include her or anything. Okay? If she doesn't make a point to come see us, if she doesn't call me and say, Helen, are you in town yet? It's like, I always have to reach out to her. And I'm like, patient, I'm kind of getting tired of it. When is she gonna acknowledge me? You know, it's always about her. And she started on me again, and I just told her she's crazy. And I just ended the conversation. Well, but that's not right. But I did, the last thing I said to her, you're crazy. And well, that's all she probably remembers now. So, I've been trying to think of a way I can make up to her without letting her know it. I'm good, I don't wanna tell me, I shouldn't have done that, I get it, and I shouldn't have. But I wanna I'm thinking of some ways that I can like secretly do something really, really good for her, but not let her know it's from me.
What good that can do?
God knows I'm
I
sorry.
mean, I do it for you, but don't you not just, they serve with it, and they just, you know.
Probably.
All right.
Don't even say what,
Well, it's 11:32, and we're gonna wrap this up. And keep in mind, everybody, even though you didn't bring any food, you're welcome. We're going to move some tables out of the way potentially.
If you'll just basically back yourselves up over here, we're gonna have a couple of younger people, my friend in the front, set out some tables, us ladies will get our stuff out, and then we'll have one little thing and we'll leave.
Great, thank you very much. Let's close in prayer. Our Father, hallowed be your name. Lord, thank you for your word today, your truth. Some of these scriptures we're still thinking about, and they're heavy on our hearts. You give these scriptures that you might help us to fulfill them. I pray that you would help each one of us. You know where each one is at in their lives, their walk with you. But we know that you want patience from all of us. Help us this week to reflect on these truths and seek you, that you might find us vessels, that others might see how we love one another and become your disciples. In Jesus' name, amen.
Last week, brother.